ready to rock and roll with Der Fuhrer. Our chancellors, the Social Democrats, they're allowed to pick conservative, law and order, liberal, pro-labor, or socialism. I've looked at the different things a little bit. And one of the things that I really like is conservative is the only one with fiscal austerity. If I get away with being the only person who chooses conservative, I can use fiscal austerity a lot. Now, the problem with this is that other players, I think my reading of the rules is that I have to pick this first, and I have to do it openly, which means essentially I'm telegraphing that capability. I have other things that are important. Everybody has Versailles, so that I can't count in any direction. It's a weaker option for me than it is for other people as conservatives. Fiscal austerity is pretty good. Anti-red is pretty good, although Law and Order likes it better. But not a lot of people have it. But again, because I'm less effective at it, it might mean that people aren't interested in conservative and might avoid it. What are my other choices here? Justice, that's used in a number of places. Again, I'm not the strongest at it. I'm going to be weaker on these other issues, and I'm not particularly good at smearing either. So conservative is actually kind of a weak choice. If somebody else wants to take it too, just to screw me out of the advantage of the fiscal austerity I don't know what to call it, plank, but issue, that's fine. But I have this capacity to get an extra point off of that. Kind of at will. Even the problem is it's not even my best option here. Justice is, for example, a better option. So I think people aren't going to go for it, and I think I'm going to go with the conservative platform. So I'll pick that openly, and I get these cards: Versailles, fiscal austerity, anti-red, justice, and smear, and everything's actually kind of in order for me there, and I'll put those over here to remind me. Now that puts me to the communists. The communists have a somewhat weaker list. Liberal, pro-labor, and socialism are their only options. I don't have any reason why I don't want to be the same thing as other people. So let's look at these. This has a big jobs point thing. This has a big social welfare ticket. And the pro-labor has perhaps the best of all, which is the labor reform. I could also look kind of at averages because, at least second place. Because look, I'm going to have to pick each of them twice. But I might be able to limit the important places. And I would say that I'm most interested in the pro-labor. So let's go for that. Now, do I have less things, though? I only have 5 platforms. Oh, that's all anybody has. Oh, okay. So that'll give me Versailles, social welfare, jobs, labor reform, and of course smear. I'm going to write a couple of these down so that I know what I'm collecting for the first set. I was not keeping into account, I'll keep those too, but which is that politically you get a lot of points to play with as the conservatives, and some of these others maybe not as many. So like demagoguery has kind of an interesting set of points going to it. So let's look at the center and think about them. So I already know that the Social Democrats are going with the conservative option. Let me look at what I can get. And some people might be like, oh, I want to make sure I don't do really poorly here as well. Conservative, the point totals are not very good. And what are their midpoint totals? Because I consider that kind of important too. They look okay. Well, let's keep following that strategy, at least for now, which is let's see what the best we can kind of get is. And pro-labor is still nice. Geez. This is so hard to kind of make a decision on. I kind of like the Law and Order. It's sort of a weak, sort of a more points on the socialism and less on the other side, or more points than the conservatives get. And it doesn't. It gives me a fair number of points here. It looks like. So we'll go with Law and Order for the center. I'm writing these down. I may not have left enough space for 3 elections. And deal them their cards. The Nationalists going second to last, and with the Nazis going next, I'm a little worried about, hey, the conservatives being able to get away with that fiscal austerity thing. However, nobody else stepped up. So on a 1, I'm going to step in and try to prevent the chancellor from winning an election. Yep. So I too am going to go with the conservative principle just to make sure somebody's keeping them honest on the fiscal austerity. Now this frees up the Nazis a little bit. Nazis love their big point getters, the big lie and the new order. If they put them in the right places, they can win themselves a lot of points. And by right places, I mean the ones where I throw some propaganda in. So I am going to go with the demagoguery, and that gets me Versailles, anti-red, new order, the big lie, and a smear. And that's a nice collection. And let's just put that one down here. Okay. So now, the next thing we do is we roll how many political fun points we get. And I'm going to do that first with the conservative government. I just roll a die. And I will be getting 30 points. I'm going to record that using poker chips, I think. They're intrinsically equal value. I'm also going to roll the government propaganda and add that. I marked down, as a reminder for myself, propagandas. Whites are going to be worth 1, blues are going to be worth 5. For mobs, I'm going to use reds as 1s and blacks as 5s. So now government propaganda. I only get 4 government propaganda. And I'll put those there. And that, normally you would wait, or by the rules you wait to roll this, but no big. Okay, so our next one is the communists who have picked a pro-labor amount. And again, this is so random, but can be really important. So I'm going to be getting 25, which is a good amount for pro-labor. And it's kind of weird because, you know, let's say I take +3 on something. Well, that means I'll be ranging from the 4 to 9 area. But if I roll poorly because I don't have enough chips to expend, I'm not going to get up in those high level values. So this is something we have to kind of keep in mind in terms of balancing. I'm assuming they're all kind of balanced. I may be wrong. You may be able to analyze these and be able to say, hey, some are just bad. Law and Order for the center. Okay, they crapped out, only getting 21. Our nationalists went with conservative. Oh, only 20 for them. And now the demagogues, who do not get a lot of points unless they roll really high. And this is one place where I think in the game I played where the Nazis were really good, is they got like a maximal points going with demagoguery. You know, 30 points of stuff. Here we're seeing only 10. That's going to weaken them. So now everybody kind of knows something. And I think the next thing we do is we roll for the street mobs. And first the Nazis, who get a lot. But they don't. They only get 15 points of street mob. They look like they're going to kind of crap out across the board. And the communists also get some. And I screwed up there. Those should be black. 4 communist workers, they're going to get 16. Which means these. Let me exchange these for black ones. So we've got about equal amounts of chaos going on. Now, players secretly write down how much they want to buy in terms of street mobs. Let me do some quick thinking here. Yeah. Or some slow thinking, depending. So, the Chancellor is afraid that he is the bunny, the person everybody's going to be hunting right now. Because the Nazis don't look particularly strong. The Communists are not doing badly by any means. They might be someone that people want to target. I think I'm going to want to buy some. Now, there's 15 different elections. And I have 10, 20, 34 points. Now, there's some things that I might want to play with, like the army. Which I want to spend for some of these to prevent street mobs. I think I'm okay not buying any as them. So I'm going to secretly write down that I'm not buying any. Does anybody else feel like they really want to gang up on someone at this point? Do they feel like they need to make an attack on the Chancellor? I think the answer is no. So we're going to avoid the street mobs. That may be a mistake. And the commissioner is an unimportant thing. Have we gotten everything we want to? Yes, we have. So now, our next step is the Chancellor has to pick where he wants to fire something off first. Now, the optimal thing is if I could find places that have fiscal authority in order to get myself extra votes. I think, what's LR? Labor reform. And J is jobs. I think I want to test out the system by going low, so I'm going to go into Baden first. And each player is going to secretly select, again, how much they want to play in an area. Now, again, I have only 30-something of these. And I'm a little reticent to throw a lot of points into things. Let me take a look at the army and see how that helps me. Costs 1 point to do the army. And when I do, I can cancel out all kind of negative voting. I could take an action, but action isn't terribly useful to me if I don't think that somebody's going to go for something. So, I could go for one of these three and just try to advantage myself as much as I can. So, Versailles and Justice. Oh, wait, Justice or Jobs? Jobs, ooh, I don't know. Oh, Justice is JU. So Versailles is the only thing I get a bonus on here. So I am going to actually play a Versailles. And this is secret. And am I going to throw some propaganda in here? I'm going to throw a point of propaganda. This is how I'm going to mark my secret stuff. And that is all I'm going to do. And now I do this kind of thing with each of the different players. So let's take a look at this one. How interested am I here? And I ought to be marking V here to indicate I did Versailles. Now, here it's kind of weird because I have to kind of choose where I want to place my things. This is the pro-labor thing. Versailles is not a big winner. Jobs is, but this is kind of a weak place. Labor reform is here too. So let's take a look at what the world looks like. Versailles exists in a lot of places. Labor reform in a few less. And that's my big point gainer. I think I'm going to go big here. I'm going to go with labor reform because I get an extra point off of it. And I am going to throw propaganda. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to throw 3 points in for propaganda. And again, this is going to be written down normally, but I'm doing this just to program what I'm doing. Do I want to throw any street mobs in here? I don't feel like it's that necessary. One thing that I think is not well covered is what to do if two people are tying for the same place in provincial delegates. Let me see how this is done. In the event of ties, the tying players share the extra provincial delegates. Okay, so that's handled reasonably. If it wasn't spelled out, I would do that. Our third is the center, who's taking law and order. Now, again, this is not a terribly important place. Law and order. Versailles is a possibility. Oh, I forgot to write down what I picked, which is labor reform. Let's put that here. LR. I'm giving myself a lot of room. Versailles is of interest here. Jobs are of interest here. And those are the only two that give me bonuses. So I probably want to go with one of them. This is an unimportant place, so I'm willing to kind of go with that. Center is law and order. Versailles not huge. Jobs maybe a little better. Let's take a look at the world, see how many places want jobs. A lot of places do. but I am going to go with the jobs anyway. And I am Law and Order going with jobs. That's not a huge point gain. I'm going to put a point of propaganda in, and that's it. And I will put a J down here. The nationalists, they went with the conservative movement again. They're in a similar position as our friends who own the government. So they are going to look and say, it looks to me like the only one that's interesting is Versailles. So I'll go with Versailles. How nice is that? I don't have a whole lot of points. I have a lot less points than the government does. I'm going to hold off because I don't want to pay any points. And that's all I'm doing. And I put a V down in mine. And for the Nazis, well, we're early. It's a good time not to put a lot of interesting stuff down. And the big lie and New Order don't get us much. We have to use Versailles and anti-red. Are there places that want anti-red? East Prussia. Yeah, there are a couple of places that want anti-red. So I think I'm going to put Versailles down. I can get some points off this, but I got to be real careful with my points because I have almost none, and I'm going to want to use them on the big lie. So I will hold there, and again, I'm not going to bring mobs out or anything like that. All right, now we get our counts. And this is where things get kind of complicated. So let's take a look at our first one. We've got Versailles with one propaganda. I hope nobody's put a 5 down. 3 is the most you should put. So this is the Conservative Party running Versailles, which is not a big point thing. I get a total of 4, which is going to only get me 1 vote. If anybody was targeting me, I'd have to look at that now. But now I've got 1 vote for that. I probably should be using dice to total the votes. But we'll see. We go to the next one. What did they do? They did labor reform with 3 extra. And this is the communists going pro-labor with labor reform at +3. This could be worth a lot. That gets them on the 7, so they get 7 points for that. Okay. And what do we got next? Okay. And I got these 3 there. Okay. Over here. And obviously, you know, with each person taking their own, it's easier because they can just report their totals and we don't have to look this all up. But this is the center at Law and Order over here, using jobs with a +1. So they got a 5 on jobs. That's worth 2 votes. Now I got a problem. Jobs is worth, no, not yet. We get these pluses after we count the votes. Okay, the final one, well, the penultimate, is going to be conservative, doing Versailles with no bonus. And that's a 3, which gets them 1 vote at Versailles. Okay. And the next one is the Nazis, who are not spending those points. They also are going straight up in Versailles. And they get 1 vote with that. Okay. So, the communists are in the first place and get 3 extra votes for that. Plus, they did labor reform, so make it 4. So now their total is at 11. Okay. And we're going to see a little communist marker going there. Second place is 2 for the center. That's yellow. So they get 2 extra votes, and they picked jobs. So they get a 3rd extra vote. So they're up to 5. And now third place is a bunch of people tied at 1. I don't know if you round up. Hold on. Indeed, you truncate. So everybody's going to get 1 vote plus 1 if they were in the play. So the Social Democrats, for taking Versailles, are at 2. The Nationalists took Versailles. They're at 2. And the Nazis took Versailles. So they're at 2. So our current vote totals are 11 for the Communists, 5, and then 2. Mark Baden so that I don't run it again. And I mark it with whoever won it just because, I don't know, that gives me a nice map representation, and I like looking at maps and seeing what's happening. The biggest problems I have is the chancellor position. It's this decision of which election to run next. I'm not sure how much it matters. It's really kind of a matter of perceptions. But anyway, I'm going to throw the next one up here into another kind of weak area of Oldenburg. Again, a 3-2-1. Not a lot at risk. And what I have to be careful of, though, is I have 10, 20, 33 points. That's enough that I can run full bore on 11 different elections. Full bore being that +3 modifier. I could actually go for a higher modifier in some places. But I feel like, well, if I'm going for that and I roll a 6, I'm wasting some points. But it might be absolutely important in some areas. Especially if I'm using justice, although the values are pretty good across the board for that. So what's nice about this one is it's another Versailles option. It's not a justice. It's social welfare is the other one. So I'm going to throw Versailles in again. And I'm going to go without putting anything. I'll make my figurings on the others. I don't want to go into the kind of detail I went into for the last one for every single little election. I don't think that's really helpful. So I'll come back with a report and any interesting decisions that I make and kind of play with less narrative. Something on my notations here. I'm using Versailles for the second time, so I'm circling it. That means I don't have to use it anymore. Similarly, the center's using jobs for its second time. I'm with $3 of political influence played by the communists again. They only got a total of 3 this time, but it still gives them the lead. So that will get them first place. So they go up to 6. Social welfare is in there, so that puts it to 7, plus the 11 that I've already got. Puts me to an 18. And I'll field that out as the second one. That'll be another red marker there. Other people are at 1, and there's a total of 3 points to split. Nobody's going to be able to get a whole point out of that, so they all negate. Everybody, I think, played something that applies in the area, so they each get 1 extra vote. So again, everybody's going to get 2 votes in this election. Track of that as a running total, so the communists have 18, the center has 7, everybody else has 4. And again, the Chancellor picks another Versailles with some other things. What did we get here? This communists filled out their social welfare. Everyone else went with Versailles again. The let me see who got the advantage here. The Nationalists got a lucky roll on their Versailles. The communists again paying money. I don't know if they should have on social welfare. But anyway, they end up at 10 points. So we've got like a 26 point communist payout so far total. But this is in some small areas, and they've spent a fair amount of their resources to win these 3 states early on. There's nothing like a bandwagon type effect in this. So like the communists aren't appearing to be, advantageous or anything. The only thing that this selection process has is sort of a psychological impact on the players. And what the Social Democrat chancellor are trying to do is to sandbag and try to boost up someone else. And the communists are looking kind of powerful, but I don't think anybody's really thinking that they're running away with the election at this point. Different situation up here in Pomerania, where justice is important, and this is good for the conservatives and the law and order. They threw in $3 each. Again, it's not a major place, so you don't want to put too much money into it, although you could kind of guarantee yourself a lot more votes that way. The first place isn't that important. We ended up with a tie between yellow and blue. I'm representing with both of them there. And they got like 5 points each, plus 2 for winning, for splitting first and second place, and then 1 more for having an associated item there. The communists went with one of their Versailles. They haven't played them before because they've had more attractive things. Here they did not. So they get their 1 point off that. And they got a point of victory. So they did not, place very well here. But they were beaten in terms of doing poorly by the Nazis, who went with a New Order. Now, New Order is not good anywhere. But it's a nice... It's not as good as The Big Lie. There's no reason to do New Order, but The Big Lie, I want to save for places where I'm going to be running well, etc. I've done so many Versailles, I'm saying screw it. I'm not going to go for a couple of points there, especially with other people, with better choices. If I put big money into Versailles, it's not bad. That's the thing. The demagoguery option is pretty good, but as we can see, it didn't generate the great points that like the conservative option would have. And conservative's not a bad choice overall. So communists are still in the lead, but the nationalists and center are now showing some significant voting power. And this is why I'm saying the communists picking up a few small states doesn't really mean much. They picked up a victory here in East Prussia, next place chosen. And this was kind of an interesting place because justice is available, but so is anti-red, and there aren't a lot of anti-red places. Anti-red's not a great thing, so putting it in a low-valued place that takes it, like Bavaria takes justice and anti-red, but has more votes available. So this is where I went with this. They went, though, putting a couple of bucks in again to get themselves some votes. And now they're up close to where the communists are, 30 to 27. They gained 8 points. The communists only gained 1, well, 2. 1 for matching the thing. The Nazis actually went with Versailles, with anti-red here as well. It's not a great option for them under the demagoguery. It's not bad, but again, demagoguery has big payoffs if you throw a lot of points in. We'll see what the Big Lie gets us. Basically, we have like 5 states we can do that in. We're getting close to where... So this is the 5th state down. The chancellor's got $30 sitting there. They could go $3 on each on a lot of these provinces. So, On the other hand, it costs them money to throw the army into play. It does not cost them money to throw the action into play. The rally ban, I think, also costs a point. Yeah. Rally bans can be useful to just wipe somebody out somewhere, which they're thinking they want to use, where they're going to be using their action, where they use the fiscal authority or austerity, so that they get the extra point for the action and prevents another player from doing that. But on the other hand, blue is not scoring that many points. Of course, right now the Chancellor is in 4th place, but he's kind of playing to that, right? I don't know if there's much else I can say here. We had a two-way tie for second, or we had a tie for second place there between the Chancellor and the Nationalists, who have basically the same thing and got the same roles. This time the Chancellor moves things over to Schleswig-Holstein, and he has something interesting to do here. Because there's fiscal austerity, he's going to go with that, go with an action, thereby getting himself 2 extra points, but he's got to worry about the other Conservative Party. So he's spending $1 on a rally ban. I'm just going to ditch that because I don't want that in the points. The rally ban, I'll succeed against others. Ooh, on a 6 or 7. Wait, is there a cost to this beyond? I thought it was just a $1 to do. Spend 1 point for each player, not on paper. The Chancellor rolls a die. Oh, maybe I missed something here. The Nazi Party Chancellor rolls a 6. He successfully the same roll would have resulted in successful. For everyone except the Communists, he uses a 7 to ban another fire in the province. Okay, so I would need a 6 because I had to spend 1 to do it. Probably wasn't a great move. I do not get it. I wish I had spent a couple of bucks on it. I didn't realize. I thought this was a 4, 5, or 6, and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good chance. Turns out it wasn't such a good chance, which means that the action essentially goes over to him, whether or not he played, but he did play the fiscal austerity as well. So, yeah. So here's the thing. Because he played the fiscal austerity, the action goes there. The rally ban would have been just to cancel him completely. Probably not worth a lot of expenditure in this little province, but yeah, you know. I do still get the extra bonus point on fiscal austerity. I'll come back on that, but I don't get the extra point for doing an action that no one else could do. Nazis end up winning their first election. They used New Order on this, got a good die roll, didn't spend anything, and ended up getting themselves 4 points plus the 3 for the province. That puts them up to a total of 15. The Communists are still in the lead. They came in second on this one, and the Center came in third. So we've still got, a pretty tight race between those two parties. Nobody spent anything except for our Chancellor to get his rally ban off. It, ended up giving a free point over to the Nationalists, which was not what we intended at all. Another good roll, this time with the big lie, which generated 8 points plus first place finish, total of 12 points. No bonuses there for the Nazis, so they get another run up there. The Social Democrats tried again, this time without bringing the army into the play with the action, and they lost again. This was a little iffier because basically there was a 50-50 chance they would do this. Silesia is a more valuable spot than Saxony, but I had no cards that really helped me in Silesia. I'm not terribly worried about trying to get the fiscal austerity on him, but I'm probably not going to win either of these provinces. And one of them, you know, I may not want to go with fiscal austerity because it's not a particularly strong option. I could go with like justice or something like that. That's just good for me across the board. But this is my second fiscal austerity. Now I don't have to play them anymore. The reason I picked this this platform was so that I could prevent the chancellor from just running away from things by using that. But it's not that strong an option. It just doesn't generate very many points. The extra point from the action is probably not worth the cost of the bad choices that are there. The advantage, of course, is by being conservative, I got a lot of tokens to play in the late part of the campaign. 7 of the 15 races so far. The Chancellor has more money than maybe he needs, although he could get better than +3 bonuses in places. He could also pay, well, he could also bring out the army, pay to bring out the army to protect himself. And if it's looking like he's gonna, you know, if it looks like he's starting to take off, that's gonna be a positive action. So him having too much money doesn't really matter. But let's look at some of the others here. So we're looking at $17 over here for the Conservatives. Over 8 remaining elections, well, that's a little over $2 for each, so they can hold off a little bit more. I also have to consider, you know, the opposition forces, bringing the rioters out. Again, 16 of them here. That's a little over 2 each. Probably want to save them for the most important races, especially if it's late in the race and you see somebody who you think is coming ahead. This is a hard call because, you know, the Chancellor kind of wants to eat up people's money. They've eaten up a fair amount of the Communists' money, actually, although they seem to have about as much as anyone else. So they had a fair amount to spend compared to other people, which, you know, is perhaps why they're doing so well. They put a little cash up front, but now they still have enough to play around in places they're going. I don't know where to go to keep going, you know, with the small state strategy to like try to wear out people's functionality, or if I want to go for things where I can start scoring big. I like the idea of sandbagging and not looking like I'm ahead very much, and then trying to win it all at the end. I'm not sure that's possible though. Which case, I don't know, this is justice. Saxony's worth a fair amount of points compared to some of the other states. Do I really want to run that right now, or do I want to hold on to that? Because I don't have a good pip for Saxony. The Chancellor may have learned his lesson. He played for justice, his best overall thing. He's filled out his card except for an anti-red, and there's places that are anti-red that he's going to want to use that in. But he didn't use action here, and the Conservatives also chose justice. He could have gotten away with something else instead. The Communists went with jobs. I don't know. I don't think this is the first time they went with jobs. They went with jobs last time too, so I should have that circled. No, I'm sorry. They went with labor reform. Shit. Okay. So they still have a jobs to open up. The center went with jobs. Labor reform's a good one. The problem is the Nazis went with the big lie, backed it up with a buck, which was enough to get them a very good roll, which got them 10 points. So now they're running up close to the Communists, 54 to 42 total, getting first place in this run. And things are beginning to look kind of scary to the Chancellor in the sense that there's two parties with additional powers who could conceivably get the Chancellery. And he's in last place. But he really does not want the Nazis, especially, to end up in the Chancellery. But the Communists are the second worst choice to put in there because, again, they've got some street thugs and they have slightly different different selections here. Although I think, well, socialism and pro-labor I think are available to the other players, so it's not really an issue there. It's just they've got a more limited set, but they've got the extra street fighters, and you know, you throw that in combination with the chancellery position, and that could steamroll. It's not as dangerous as the Nazis having that capability, where they can be doing the demagoguery and really be screwing with other people, but they can't do action. So if they do demagoguery, they can't do action on New Order or the Big Lie. So that's kind of a big deal. They would need a pile of cash, but the extra government propaganda, if they get a good roll on that, that could just, you know, steamroll everyone if they get a good money die roll. So yeah, Nazis called out the SA and did another big lie with money, and nobody actually attacked them. So at least there was that. And no, you can't use the army to attack the Nazis and prevent them. You can't use the army like thugs. You can only use the army to prevent thugs. So, but the decision was made to go into Hanover, and we had a couple of weird choices here. So, for example, Yellow went with justice instead of jobs. They didn't need a jobs. They just need their anti-red. And so they went with justice because it produces a little better than jobs plus 1 does. So why take that bonus? And it also gives a bonus. You know, if you can get more points, the bonus points don't count towards your chance of winning the election, and the winning the election can get you more. After the Nazis, the next best were the communists, who did a jobs, but got a decent roll. And their jobs is better anyway, right? They're pro-labor jobs, so they got a better table. Did they need that? Yes, they needed to fill out another job, because the point is, labor reform gets them better than the +1 as well. So they're going to want to go with labor reform as much as possible. But the Nazis are creeping up on the communists here, 58 to 52 now. And third place went over to the nationalists, who, oh, that's not an 8, that's a 5 with a slash through it. So actually, the communists got third place, not second. Where I have an underscore, that's a new notation that I'm using to indicate that they're going to get the bonus point for some reason, just so that I can help remind myself what's going on. But anyway, the Nazis seem to be on a roll now that they can lie a lot, and are pushing forward. The power of the big lie. Move to another low value one, Mecklenburg. The Chancellor really trying to win it all on some of the big states. This is good because it fills out his dance card with the anti-red that he didn't have, and some other people are getting the same. Now, the center got an anti-red. The nationalists got their second anti-red. Okay. Now, what goes on here? Oh, the Nazis wanted to go anti-red here. Shit. Yeah, I'm gonna actually shift the Nazi thing. I forgot this was gonna be where they wanted the anti-red. We're not doing the big lie on this one, and we're not spending money on an anti-red. Okay, but before we roll the Nazis, there's something interesting going on. I've rolled for the other players. The interesting thing is the communists are smearing the Nazis with a couple bucks in there. So let's take a quick look. The Nazis not spending anything on anti-red, which is not one of their favorites, but so they're going to get 1 point base. However, the smear automatically steals 1 point. Unfortunately, that choice is kind of lousy because the communists did a $2 smear with a total of 7. They would be taking 2 points away. Instead, they cause nothing to the Nazis with an anti-red bonus, and we only get $1 in the communist trick box, which means we have a 3-way tie for first place. So they split all 6 points. They'll each get 2 bonus points for that, and that's just going to be kind of a mess. All kinds of interesting stuff going on here in Thuringia, which is again a small valued one, but it's got some interesting stuff like justice, labor reform, social welfare. We got the communists playing social welfare there, getting themselves 6 big points, which looks pretty good. But here's what's going interesting. The communists sent some of their workers out on the street to go beat up Nazis. The Nazis are putting some SA out there, not as much. So they're going to net, because of the propaganda in this, a 0 bonus on their big lie die roll. But they're also being smeared by the center. Now, Nationalists got their justice. I think everybody's filled out their card. Has the center has not played its last AR yet. It's got another one coming, which they're probably planning on in Bavaria. Okay. I don't know if that's canceled out if somebody does a rally ban on them. I can't imagine that it could be, because it could be the last election of this cycle. Although I don't know. It could just be you can't play anything. Well, no, you have to fill them all out. Yeah, I think you just have to be trying. Okay, so let's take a look at the Nazis who do the big lie with nothing on their die roll. And they get a 3. The big lie at 3 is only worth 1, which means the smear is again not going to be very good. It's just going to knock them down to a 0 again. And that's going to get 1 point for the center for the smear. And that means the victory is going to go to the communists again, with the Social Democrats and the nationalists tying. A weird situation, because the communists are well ahead of the Nazis, 69 to 53. But there's the fear of the Nazis, because they have the big lie. They have a fair amount of money left. They could score some big points in some big places, so people have to do something about them. Is that all up to the Chancellor? I don't know. The Chancellor's kind of trying to sandbag and get his big victory in points. So, you know, there's always this kind of weird tension in the game. Like in many multiplayer games, there's the what do I want to spend? What do I want to use on people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That means there's only 4 left. 1, 2, 3, 4. That fits. These aren't necessarily the biggest states, although I think all the big ones are remaining. And the most important of all is Brandenburg, and then Bavaria, of course. Hesse is fairly large. Württemberg is then, you know, in kind of the mid-sized stuff that's not tiny, but not really all that worthwhile either. What are we doing? I don't know. Interesting stuff happened in Württemberg. First of all, the Nazis went with Versailles instead of the big lie. They don't want to spend their points here. They did spend one on some SA, which canceled out some of the points the communists threw in against them. But this is sort of the last of the littler places, so it wasn't as important. It is a justice location as well as a labor reform. No, it's not labor reform, sorry. But we ended up with a 4-way tie, with people beginning to throw a decent amount of cash in terms of the people who threw justice into play. But labor reform for the communists got a decent value too. So they're able to keep their run going up there. They're at 76. Next in line is actually now the nationalists at 56, and the Nazis falling behind at 55. There's a fear of the Nazis still, but the chancellor is beginning to think that the communists are the bigger worry. The problem is he's not sure he can win. He might be able to stop the communists from winning this election. He's not sure he can hold the election. This labor reform plank ends up getting them the victory here. 8 more points. That's up to 91. Second place in this went to the center with their justice. They ended up getting it up to 64. However, the nationalists were a little ahead. They took third place, and it's only an extra point. It's only a 1-point difference. So they're up to 65. And then beneath that, the Nazis were at 56. They did the big lie with only one propaganda. They protected it. Nobody went against it, but they didn't get a good die roll. They were hoping, to get really lucky there, honestly, because they're planning on spending 3 points each on the next elections. That could be a dangerous policy if they were already kind of ahead. There's no question that a big rally ban would come on their ass. But at this point, it's the communists who are the threat. And we got to decide whether or not it's worth putting a big rally ban on the communists. Are they at like 30% of the total? I don't think so. So they have maybe close to 100 at this point. There's 100. There's another 100. It's close, but maybe I don't need to hit them too hard. The other thing is people might be considering smearing them and stealing some of their points in some of these big things. They have a fair number of points left over to play around with. A little bit more than they need, actually, a 3 and a 4. So that's a consideration. So the rally ban, if they're sitting on, let's say they just hold their money and don't compete heavily in Bavaria. If they're sitting on all that money, there's no question that the rally ban comes down there. Things are a little bit more iffy if they only have $3 or $4 left in Bavaria. Hey, is it worth it? I don't know. The interesting thing about the rally ban is because it cancels them out, it gives them 0 points, so smearing them doesn't become an effective tactic. One question that comes in this game is how much you're going to allow table talk, because if you allow it, you can coordinate your efforts against the leader. We always played the games that we played with pretty much, you wouldn't be able to maybe go off and do secret table talk, but you might be able to say, yeah, I'm gonna, but if you say it in front of the communists, it's not very effective. Like if you say, well, we're gonna smear him this time, well, then he throws all his points in on that one, right? So if you can't walk away from the table to secretly discuss it, it's not really going to work very well, because you're going to telegraph the move to the communists or to whoever the leader is, so that, they can at least somewhat mitigate what you're doing to them. If you allow completely secret discussions and negotiations, then there's nothing that states that you can or can't. Then things become a little different. But I could totally see, hey, it's my turn to take care of him this time. It's my turn to take care of him this time. Where you don't know whether you're facing if you're facing the chancellor, you don't know if you're facing a smear or a full rally ban, if he says he's going to take care of something. So, either one could work. A good smear is not going to generate a lot of points, though. So, if you can score a lot of points anyway, you're not going to get that hurt by a smear. Tighten up a lot in Bavaria. The communists throw a big bunch of red workers out on the street that they're planning on sending. They intend to put some big money in, etc. But they're in the lead. They got rally banned all over their ass with a big $5 rally ban on them. Almost assured to work. You can assure it, but I didn't want to. I want to save some money for other things. So they were just stopped, dead. But a 15-point big lie with just $3 in, a lot of protection on it, brings them up to 79 in second place now with a close run. I mean, you know, if you shut the communists down, the Nazis might be able to win. So, again, they're not going to win the 30% or whatever you need. Is it 30 or 33? 30% of the delegates. They're not going to get that, I don't think. The communists were the only ones who are kind of running close to that. And the big points are coming here, and if you can shut them down, yeah, they're not going to get it. So that brings the Nazis into being a danger again. We got a fair number of points, though, here with the Nationalists, who got second place and are now in third overall at 76. The Social Democrats actually pulled off a third place finish here, but they're still trailing way behind. And I'm not sure it's worth throwing a rally ban for a lot of money, you know, to try to stop someone. On the other hand, it doesn't matter how many points I get. There's two things that matter. Did I win the whole election? That's one option. If I didn't win the election, then I got to make sure whoever did win isn't someone I don't want to win. So maybe I'm best off throwing a couple of rally bans and just trying to stop the Nazis or the communists from taking the win here, and let someone else be the chancellor and try to defend the Republic. Quick thing, I think I had said this, everybody had filled out their dance card. The centrists had not. They needed the anti-red that they played in Bavaria. Otherwise, they'd be forced to play it here, where they really don't want to play it. In the Brandenburg election, I'm throwing down $5 on each rally ban. That shuts the Nazis down. They're done. Actually, I only need 4 to shut them down. So you know what? I'm going to shut both them and the communists down for sure. $6 on the communists and 4 on the Nazis. And neither of them get to play. So I don't have to do any special rolls. And that means I'm just doing it justice. And I'm just counting on not being able to win here, but hoping somebody can beat out the communists. In fact, what I should be doing... No, I shouldn't be smearing the communists because they're not going to get any votes here. As even shutting down the communists wasn't enough. They're 91 points. No one could catch them. The closest, the center and the nationalists both got up to 85. Now, the center won the election in Brandenburg, but the communists are going to be the chancellor for the next one. And it's clearly not 30% of the vote, right? They're at 91. We've got 145 there and 150 something there. I'm nowhere near 30%. So that means this is the end of the first electorate, and the communist chancellor is, or the communists did not win the game, but they did win the first election, and we'll now have the mechanisms of the state to help them try and win a second election. If they win a second election, they win the game. If they don't win a second election, then we fall to, well, somebody could win that second election with the 30%, or whoever accumulated the most delegates overall. So this is the record sheet for the first election, and we'll keep this and compare it, you know, as we go into, if we make it to the third, we have to add them all up and see what comes of that. But right now, yeah, the communists have a nice little advantage, and they're one of the, so they have kind of an interesting combination of capabilities. They're not like the Nazis. The Nazis could do a lot of damage without the rally ban being able to be thrown on the Nazis. They can run those big lies off pretty big, and it would be very hard to stop them. And that's the situation that we saw in the game that I played previously, was the Nazis won the first election off the big lie, and not by enough, but they were able to control the second election well enough that they just basically ran the table on it and were able to get to that 30%. All right, I'll clear you up, go to the next election, but while I'm doing that, let's send this one up.